What is up, guys? Welcome back to Review Space. I'm here to review last night's episode of Monday Night Raw, November 5, 2012. Alright, we have a six-man tag match. R-Truth, Rey Mysterio, Cena, Cara going up against Antonio Cesaro, primetime players, and this was pretty much a basic match. You had R-Truth pinning Antonio Cesaro. I feel kind of bad for Antonio because he's not getting a huge crowd reaction, you know, kind of just a very mediocre, lukewarm response, and he's in a dangerous position because they're not booing him loudly or they're not cheering him loudly, and he's just sort of in between. I don't know if this was a sign that maybe they're going to end up just not pushing him and just bury him, because he was just beaten in this match. He was just completely, he ate the finishing move of, you know, Ray got the 619, and then he got the Little Jimmy R-Truth finishing move. I mean, it was just, he looked relatively unimpressive in this match, and maybe they're just going to take away the belt from him and just never push him anymore, which is a shame because I'm a big fan of Claudio Castagnoli, Cesaro. Alright, we have Cody Rhodes. He had a match against Daniel Bryan, ended up pinning Daniel Bryan, actually, big surprise win there. But then, just right after that, we had Kane going up against Damien Sandow, which was kind of a strange impromptu like match. Kane ended up beating him with a choke slam, so it was kind of like our team wins one and then your team wins one. So hopefully, man, I'm just hoping that Rhodes Scholars become tag team champions in the future. They pretty much need it. They could use that belt. Team Hell No, they don't really need a belt anymore, and maybe they should probably split up sooner. Sheamus going up against The Miz. Pretty decent crowd pop for Sheamus. And he defeated The Miz. It was pretty basic. He hit him with a Brogue kick and got a good reaction from the Birmingham English crowd. There was a Divas match, but I didn't pay attention to it at all, so let's just keep moving. Kofi Kingston went up against Alberto Del Rio, and actually Alberto, he ended up losing to Kofi Kingston because of Randy Orton's theme music playing during the match and distracting Alberto Del Rio. Kofi Kingston capitalizing with a roll-up. I thought it was a good little win for Kofi, and of course Randy Orton had his shine by giving the RKO. He got a pretty good reaction from the crowd as well. And, I mean, I don't know what's going on here. You know, this is probably the closest that's ever occurred, you know, between Kofi and Randy Orton, at least from my memory, you know, ever since that infamous incident. And so, I mean, just, it's a sign that maybe, you know, Kofi is really about to get pushed, and maybe that old Randy Orton thing is, you know, history, and maybe he doesn't feel that negatively towards Kofi anymore, and, you know, they really just are trying to push Kofi at this point. Like, he's on good terms right now. Team CoBro, which is basically, actually it makes sense. I mean, this is a pretty sensible tag team. You have Santino Marella and Zack Ryder in this comedy tag team, I guess. That's kind of nice. They actually defeated Primo and Epico. Which, man, I forget that Primo and Epico are still on the roster. You know, they're a real tag team, and they come across as an actual, you know, wrestling pair. They ended up, you know, putting over the CoBro. Oh, man. Heath Slater going up against Jey Uso. Yeah, I mean, this is that three-man band thing, or whatever it is, and yeah, I mean, Heath Slater, man, him and Jinder Mahal, and I'm trying to remember, what's his name? The Chosen One. Yeah, I mean, this pairing is just kind of strange. I mean, I've never really talked about the three-man band. I think it's such a weird gimmick. It doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't seem to fit. I can't see it being successful, but if it does work in the future and somehow they go over, hey, yeah, more power to them, but I don't see it happening. We have Wade Barrett, who actually got a pretty good crowd reaction, of course, in front of the English crowd, and that was really cool to see. Everybody was clapping and cheering him on. That was awesome. He went up against Brodus Clay, and he got a lot of cheers, and let's go Barrett, clap, clap. That was great. Brodus Clay got boos, of course, and, you know, very, very anti-Brodus Clay in this particular crowd, which makes sense. Barrett, I was actually a little bit surprised that they cheered him that much. I mean, I understand that he's been around for at least a couple of years, and at one time he was sort of a main event heel, and he went up against guys like Cena. You know, he's never really, to me, he's still never made a huge impression in terms of an actual main event threat. He was never... He was never a WWE champion or a world champion, and they never went 100% with him. There was always something that sidelined him or sidetracked him. You know, he's not like a Sheamus or a Miz even that was catapulted to the top. So is he an underrated wrestler? I don't know. You know, I think he's kind of average in ring in terms of performing ability. You know, he's kind of not that impressive, but I can see why people like him. He's a big guy, you know, he's got the look, he can talk in the mic pretty good, and that's pretty much all you need. I mean, he's relatively... He's the kind of WWE superstar that can go over without having to do too much in the ring because he's already big and he's got that charisma. So, I mean, I like Wade Barrett, you know, I hope that one day he does become champion, because it just feels fresh, you know, something a little bit different. His finishing move, you know, he hit Brodus Clay with it, that knockout punch, or knockout elbow attack. Yeah, I mean, it's weird, because that's kind of, Cassius Ohno's finisher, right? I mean, that's Chris Hero's move, so I don't know what's going to happen with Chris Hero. Is he going to adapt that? You know, if he ever goes into WWE programming, you know, what's going to happen to that finisher? Strangely enough, I do think it makes sense for Wade Barrett to have that finishing move, because he is the bare-knuckle fighter and all that, and he's supposed to be this guy who hits hard with his punches and strikes, and it sort of makes sense. Alright, and then we have Ryback and John Cena tag teaming up against CM Punk and Dolph Ziggler. I'm here to show the world, come on! Bring it on! Yo, you gotta love that theme music. I gotta say, Dolph Ziggler has an epic theme song. I know he's had it for a while, but it's way better than his first one. I am perfection. I mean, that was just, you know, it wasn't that intense. And I also like his t-shirt. You know, props to the merchandising, man. He's got an awesome color t-shirt. He seems like he gets better merch every time. You know, he had that pink shirt, and now he's got this bright sky blue, you know, with a yellow print. It looks good, man. I mean, you can see a lot of people wearing it in the crowd, so it's very popular. You know, it kind of reminds me of like the Carlito t-shirts back in the day. It was actually cool to see it because it was very colorful in ring. It wasn't like these drab, earthly colors. It was like you had Ryback's red, you had Cena's green, you had CM Punk with a bright yellow, and then you had Dolph Ziggler's blue, and it was just a nice, like, a rainbow-flavored, very colorful array of visual clothing that they wore. Yeah, and I like that. I love colorful stuff, as opposed to, like, really dark or neutral colors, like grays and blacks and, you know, browns and stuff like that. As far as the match itself, actually it was just Ryback hit CM Punk with a shell shock, and they had to make Ryback look strong because otherwise it just wouldn't. I mean, he needs a win at this point, so that really made sense. I'm still not sure what's going to happen because Vince McMahon actually announced that it's apparently going to be a triple threat or something like that. CM Punk, Ryback, and John Cena at Survivor Series. You know, I don't know what the deal with that is. For the WWE Championship. And he also changed up the whole thing with the what is it? The Survivor Series big tag match elimination thing, where it's Team Dolph Ziggler now instead of Team Punk. So that should be interesting. I mean, it's nice that Ziggler's getting a push, kind of. I thought it was kind of awkward, his interaction with Vickie Guerrero, though. That was just really strange. What the hell was that all about? Where, you know, Vickie was kind of like, oh, I'm trying to push Dolph Ziggler and trying to make sense, and I don't want to say John Cena because I don't like Cena and he's got a scandal with AJ, and then you have Vince McMahon who is pro Cena, anti CM Punk, and he was just basically forcefully pushing his agenda and making Vickie basically arrange the match. And it was like, you better not say Dolph Ziggler or else you're fired, which I thought it was just kind of, it was way too realistic for me, but in a bad way. Like, sometimes I had a feeling that this is what Vince McMahon does backstage in terms of booking. Like, he's the guy who does this thing on a daily basis. Like, you're not gonna do this. I'm gonna do it my way. This is my show. You know, this is what you're gonna do. And if you don't do it, you're fired. Like, And as far as the scandal itself, you know, that's a big segment as well. You had the AJ apparently going inside a hotel room with supposedly John Cena, and you got the freaking cameras, and it's kind of a mess. The one thing I like was the crowd. They accepted it pretty well. I mean, they received it. I like the chemistry between John Cena and Vickie Guerrero. I thought they did a pretty good job of actually just interacting with each other. You know, that was kind of cool to see. And at least the crowd was really into it. You know, they were chanting yes, yes, and it was just very lively, at least for that segment. And that's pretty much it. I mean, overall, it was kind of a mixed bag. Some good things, some bad things, some boring things. Definitely better than last week. I mean, last week was just incredibly boring to watch. This one was a little bit more exciting. Thank the crowd, because they were very... They made me watch it and stick around because they had good reactions. Usually it's just very sedated crowd, not really saying anything. That's pretty much it for this episode of Raw. Thank you for watching, and till next time, ciao.